Okay, hello and welcome, folks, to another edition of RSF Radio. I am your host, Joe Monday, and this is the podcast where we talk about what's been going on the front page of our Street Fighter. Now, today is June 14th, episode 43, and I missed a lot. I missed a lot of the front page of our Street Fighter. It's been a couple weeks since we've done a normal show. I've had a lot of guests on recently. Seems like people kind of want guests on the show, or more guests, more variety of guests, which I'm totally down for. We can get into that probably wrap that one up at the end of the show. But in the meantime, I do want to apologize at the beginning of this episode. It might become a brief episode. I am feeling a little bit under the weather, drinking this hot toddy. I like a good hot toddy when I'm sick, because I'm a functioning alcoholic. No, that's not something fun to joke about. However, I do find hot toddies to be they're good, man. Like, just that little bit of whiskey, a little bit of tea. When I drink tea at all, I prefer Lapsang Souchong. I highly recommend it. It's like a smoked tea that, I don't know, like the smell to it, it's just like a smoky smell. It's so good. I've made mashed potatoes with it. Give you a little smoky mashed potatoes. Yeah, you just put a little bit of that in the water that you're boiling your taters in, and then kind of don't entirely strain it out when you go to mash. Oh, it's very good, very delicious. So yeah, it might be a little short episode. That also might be because I've just kind of been not really up to. Well, let me put it this way: there hasn't been a ton of Street Fighter related things to really talk about in the last week or 2 weeks or so, just because E3 is happening right now, currently with it's this week, so all the big announcements have happened. Everyone's very excited about a whole bunch of other games. There's a lot of great news for fighting games, which not necessarily would be covered in something like this podcast. We typically don't reach too far out of Street Fighter. I mean, we could talk a little bit out if you want to talk about Smash. Everyone's FGC Twitter seems to be very excited about Smash, except for Waluigi fans. That's weird. I wonder why. I thought everyone was included. I thought Smash was inclusive. Anyway, no. So again, it might be a little bit of a short episode, and I apologize for that. But also, I want to apologize for if you guys hear a wind chime. So I live in the city, and my neighbor there's about maybe 3 feet maximum between our houses, and right on the edge of his property, of our backyards, right on the edge, right there, he put a wind chime, which I posit should be illegal if you live in the city. Now, I get it. If you live out in the country and there's no one within earshot of a gentle wind chime blowing amidst the breeze, to your leisure, please go ahead and enjoy those sounds. But if you live in the city, it should be a crime. So I was talking about this with my wife, who was on a couple episodes ago, that there has to be a solution to this. And she was like, well, what if there was an accident? I'm like, okay, yeah, I like where your head's at. We're tossing football in the backyard, and then, oops, knocked over your wind chime, but it's made of steel. That might be tough. Oops, accidental smelting. Those things happen. Sometimes there's just an accidental smelting. I don't know. And then maybe it was well, maybe if we bought a wind chime and then intentionally destroyed it in front of the other wind chime, to be hey, you wind chime, this is what happens to wind chimes in this neighborhood. So you better fucking watch your back. Whenever you feel that gentle breeze, you better think twice about making your lovely tunes. I understand they're very lovely, but enough is enough. There's a ton of solutions to this wind chime problem. Asking your neighbor to take it. No, I don't want to do that, because that would be that's a social nightmare. Social awkward nightmare that I don't want to be trapped in. I just have to find some way to use subterfuge to take care of this wind chime problem that I have. Okay, anyway, let's get into the news, because lots at least been happening with our Street Fighter as a whole. So I know I said that earlier, there's not a whole lot going on, but our Street Fighter's doing some stuff. We're making moves. And by that I mean the voting process is up. And in fact, upon hearing this podcast, this is a Thursday that you might be hearing this, or it could be Friday. Friday's the last day. Get your votes in now. You guys nominated the players that you wanted, and now it's time to vote. There's a lot of really good players in this list, and it could be very difficult to decide. There's it's kind of harsh. There's one Zangief, and I know that there's other players to choose from, but also I abstained from. I should be clear, as the person who's running it, I did abstain from voting, and I also abstained from nominating players because that's not. I feel like that would be a little unfair to the community. It made things easier for me just to say I didn't have any hand in this. This is all you guys. So again, this is all you guys. This is just the voting process. So the top 2 at least, we're going to try and get to EVO 2018. And if you guys raise enough money, because that's the other part about this, is that there's going to be a whole fundraising part with t-shirts. There's going to be a fundraising part with direct donations through Matcherino. It'll be a whole thing. Much like it was for Combo Breaker. And at least the top 2, we're going to try and get out there. But in addition to that, I'm thinking, what if we got 4? I know we're running up on time here. We've got a month really to raise enough money to we have a solid month of money raising to really plan out, who we can get to the big show. So I'm hopeful because I believe in the community. I don't know if I should talk about this. This is one of those things where I feel like the community is both equally good and... Alright, so let's actually use an example. Let's talk about the Summit of Power for a minute. It is FGC... It's FGC. Not necessarily Street Fighter, although Street Fighter players were in the Summit of Power. It was basically a bunch of people voted, which the voting process I'll talk about in just a second because that's the important part. Voted on players to go live in a house for a couple days, and at the end of those days, having fun matches and I don't know, just house built. It was Big Brother, but with fighting games. There was a very good Jenga stuff. Jenga was very hot in the FGC for a couple days. Then it was Mafia, and then they played the tournament. Fantastic tournament. If you enjoy watching DBFZ, great stuff. But what I have to bring up is the voting process on how players were voted into the house, because along with voting, they required people basically to buy more votes. You could buy more votes to elect these players, which I see this as from both ends. From the user end, as someone who might buy votes to get their favorite player up to a thing, it could be that whole eBay bidder's remorse, except you lose all your money, right? Because you don't get that money back if your player doesn't get voted. You just lose it. And I can see that, how someone sits on a vote until the very last minute and then buys a bunch at the very end, and just gets people over. That happened to a lot of players, or at least a couple of players who got voted in. That's kind of funky. It's funky business. That's not a good user experience. But from the my production mind and my trying to raise money mind, as someone who's done this a couple times for player sponsorships, is that I know at least right now the 900 people have voted, just about 900 people have voted for the player sponsorship, for the R Street Fighter player sponsorship. And I will promise you that 900 people will not donate money in any way, or buy a t-shirt, or do anything like that. This is just not how the metrics work. It's way easier to vote and way easier to be involved that way, and that's fine to be involved that way, and I'm glad to have people involved that way. But also, that doesn't help the community reach its ultimate goal of sponsoring players to get to the main stage where they belong so that they can compete. It's a different thing for me, but I also see it from the business perspective of the Summit of Power, where they're just they're just running like a show, basically. Luckily, though, they put a lot of that money into production value, and from all reports, those players were treated very well and very nicely, and it's good that they were good arbiters of that money. So it's a good situation over there. So ultimately ended up being good, but there's part of me, and I'm just tossing this idea out there. I actually don't know if this is viable in our case, but I think maybe it might be worthwhile to say, well, if you guys want to vote in the next... God, no, I can't even say it out loud because we can't do that. We've always been more people-focused, community-focused, and just making people vote is... Even I'm just talking this out kind of in front of an audience of everybody, and even just saying these words out loud, I'm like, nah, we can't do something like that. Because it's for the people, by the people, in Mother Russia, on our Street Fighter. So anyway, I guess look forward to the next Summit of Power. There's not going to be a Street Fighter. I can almost guarantee that. We have too many things similar to that, where that doesn't make sense to do it. But anyway, what's the next bit we can talk about? Other Street Fighter related stuff. Oh, this one's fun. Speaking of community-based things, this was I know this was a while ago. I had marked this one to definitely talk about because I think it's definitely worth talking about, which is Tom Cannon's talk at GDC 2017. It's just a very good talk, and if you don't know who Tom Cannon is, co-founder of Evo. Speaking of Evo, man, I had so many ways to transition into this. I might go back and re-record more transitions. You want to go back with me a second and start re-recording more transitions? Oh man, lovely, beautiful, so many options, so many avenues. Regardless, talks about the fighting game community, how it was built basically, and how that ties into esports and game development. But some of the more interesting stuff that he gets into kind of reincorporates basically how you can't really force the esports on something. You can't just have the top level, here's the esports, because no other sport or any institution is like that. There's so many other things below it which eventually reach that top pinnacle pyramid. The example that he uses is the NBA. There's not just the NBA. There's so many other basketball-related institutions all over the country, and all over the world, in fact, that support basketball, and that support of basketball supports the NBA in even those somewhat tangential ways, but sometimes very direct ways. If schools don't offer basketball as a school sport, then maybe kids don't get into basketball or even understand the sport. So there's a whole institutions built around that, and things are getting better for games, definitely. You're seeing colleges at least take are they calling them esports scholarships? Are they calling them esports scholarships? I hope they're not calling them esports scholarships. They're probably calling them that. Regardless, esports scholarships for people to, get paid to go to school for playing games and have gaming teams, which is all good stuff. And how it's just things that I like to think about as well on a day-to-day, because I think there's a lot that we can do as a community. Our fighting game community has already bolstered many of the major tournaments of the fighting game community. It's mostly still grassroots, even though there is big corporate money still involved. I said big corporate money. Yeah, that's not true. It's corporate money. It's sizable, let's say. But even though it has that kind of influence, it's still operated by and run by, your TO's not going to be someone who doesn't know shit about fighting games. It's going to be someone who volunteered. It's going to be someone who, knows what the fuck they're doing, hopefully. Or at least was told, knows about the game, let's say. It's not just going to be some Joe Schmo that they just hired, right? They're not going to be a teamster running your bracket. let's say. And it's never going to be that way. And it also can't be taken away from us because of the people who are still involved and still making this community thrive. I guess where I'm going with this is that I am in agreement with most of this GDC talk and a lot of what Tom Cannon has to say about building communities, and it's like thinking about like applying that to my own world and thinking about just opening it up to you guys of like, how do you apply that to your own world? Like, what does that mean? What does that look like? And just different ways to expand the community, because the more you do, the more you work at like a ground grassroots level, everyone benefits, even though like at a top level, but regardless, not important. Moving on, speaking of top level community support, fun stuff like that, something that we haven't touched upon in a while, which we should go back to because we're kind of like in it right now. I think if I clicked on this link, I could see tournament right now. What am I talking about? Rage. Japan's Rage. It is the Street Fighter All-Stars League, powered by Capcom, I should say. If you don't know what that is, guess what? This is the second time I'm going to say it out loud on this show, and I'm going to butcher it again. Dr. Fuga Tabetai has translated and done a bunch of work here. Like, it's kind of a great article on like, what is Rage? Where is it? Like, who's on what? Like, what important dates do you need? All of this information is there, and it's actually a really well produced, really fun looking tournament. I haven't been able to like follow along with how people are receiving it in Japan or within those audiences, but the players themselves seem to be having a very good time with it. The players themselves seem to be having a lot of fun with this, and like hearing their chatter back and forth and seeing some things on Twitter and seeing some translations, even just in this article, has been a lot of fun. Basically, this breaks down like what's up for grabs. So it's teams of 3, run by the 6 like leaders of those 6 teams. Let's say the team breakdown is so Nemo, Kazunoko, and Storm Kubo on a team, and how they pick these teams were like basically like it was like they held a draft basically, and if there was anyone who there's a whole bunch of like weird arbitration rules that you can read about of how this worked, but these were players chosen by the team leaders. There's Itabashi's team, which is Machabo. I always want to say Machabo, but that's not it. It's not how you say that. Machabo and Gachikun. There's Fujimura's team that has Momochi and MOV. Daigo's team has Sako and Bonchan. Moke has Dogura and Hayatani. And Tokido's team is Fudo and Mago, which is a very strong team. The pictures from their team have been fun to see, and also watch the interview of Born Free and Mago. It's quite a good one. Also, the Born Free and Tokido. Have I not told you to go watch those? Go watch those interviews. They're very good. Go watch that entire interview series from Combo Breaker. It's all very good stuff. So anyway, important dates are actually like right now and like upcoming right now. I actually think this is happening. This is happening right now at this recording, at like the time of this recording. If I click on this OpenRec TV link, will I see matches? I think I will, actually. Hold on, I'm gonna let this load. No, I don't want to sign in. No, I don't want to do any of that stuff. I just want to watch the... Nope, not right now. Okay. Maybe I don't know how time works. Anyway, there's a match tonight. Then there's one tomorrow. No, on the 18th. On the 18th, then the 19th, then 23rd. Schedule's all here. All good stuff. There's money up for grabs. That's basically the end of this, is that there's... let's see, how much was it? Roughly amounts to like $55,000 to be split amongst the winners, like 27 to the runners-up, and then like 9,000 for the third place team out of the 6 teams. So it's like a huge round robin thing, and then there's a tournament at the end. It's very the rules are like very complicated, which only reading a translation of the things has been like, oh, okay, no, I understand, because like I can't watch like the original production material because it's all in Japanese, and I need someone like Dr. Fuga Tibetai to help me out. So if you need some help learning that stuff, then that's all good. Or you could also pop into this breakdown from SRK. Basically wraps up day 2. Hayatani is undefeated, and Hayatani is very good. Daigo's team leads. That's interesting. That was like actually not predicted. Everyone thought Tokido's team, and I still think Tokido's team. I would think that Itabashi's team is the underdog. It's very interesting. I just wish Itabashi kept playing Zangief, but that's irrational and not a smart idea. They took Zangief out of the game, but they put in Cody, actually, is the new character that they're putting in the game. All kinds of fun Cody stuff. In fact, they released the moves list for Cody. Look at this sexy gentleman. He's like all mayoral. His tie's a little loose. No top button in that shirt. That's strange. Anyway, so if you want to get an idea of what his moves list is like and how to perform his inputs, this might be a good place to start. There are also some other breakdowns. I know there's the WSO thing that we talked about last week with Arliath, which we only briefly touched upon. But this digs into this a little bit more and just shows that they're releasing this stuff early. Something that I didn't recognize was that his target combo is just like an auto combo. It's just light punch. It's just light punch. You just press it 4 times. I mean, I get, like, it makes sense, right? It makes sense. I don't know why I hadn't pieced that together from the WSO stream, where it's like, oh yeah, I knew he had a target combo that can either lead to a grab or a knockdown. But it's like, I didn't realize that it was just light punch. That's very silly to me. It's very silly to me. His kind of also shows off like V trigger, V skill stuff. He has a lot of different moves with his V trigger 2, which I think his V trigger 2 is going to be the stronger one, which we actually saw in practice with the New Day and the Elites Street Fighter V Edition Showdown. That happened earlier today, in fact. It concluded only a few hours ago. This was Xavier Woods and Kenny Omega built up their teams and did a 3v3 with like a team versus battle thing the Street Fighter V has that not a lot of people actually use in practice. It's like, I don't know, that should be an online feature. They should make that online. By the end of Street Fighter V's life cycle, they should make that online, because I've totally forgotten that was a thing that exists until I saw like this beef. If you haven't been following, this SRK post does a very good breakdown. Oh, excuse me. Gotta take another sip of that hot toddy. Gotta keep it clean down there in the pipes. So what this does is it's a article breakdown of the beef, where the origins of, and actually talks about like WWE is covering it, which I'm like, okay, but like the Venn diagram of people who enjoy wrestling and are part of the FGC it's like one fucking circle, my guy. You're not reaching new customers there. So anyway, I mean, it's cool though. It's cool that they're covering it. Like, it's just a little extra thing. Maybe get more players involved thinking about Street Fighter. Maybe wanting to get into it. More people, other communities reaching out to the fighting game community are very cool, I think. I think it wasn't Ninja the other day who streamed a Smash tournament or something like that. I only tangentially heard about this. I might be getting that totally wrong. It might have been some other very popular streamer who was restreaming a Smash tournament but like stayed with it and like talked about why things were hype at the time. Don't remember exactly what it was, but if that is because again, don't follow Smash, that wasn't posted on our Street Fighter, so it doesn't exist to me because I'm a hyperbolic person. That's just how I live my life. But anyway, so they had their beef. So So, spoiler alert. I'm going to give you a spoiler alert. Jump ahead like 2 minutes if you don't want this spoiled. I'm giving this because the type of play exhibited here isn't like these guys aren't pros. It's very sloppy play, and like their teammates are also like extra sloppy as well. So they made it extra sloppy for you. So like from a like watchability standpoint, all the fighting is like, well, yeah, okay. But like the works around all of the fighting are somewhat entertaining. So like there might be some entertainment value for that. But what I will say is that Kenny Omega's team loses the team battle. But at the end of it, Kenny Omega stands up and is like, no, Austin, Xavier Woods, this is between you and me. This is not everyone else around here. This is not our teams. We have the beef, and we didn't get to play each other. Challenge them to a first to 5. And on the spot, and like, clearly all of this was staged, is the other thing. That's like one of those things where you gotta be a smart about it. And Tasty Steve wears the crimson mask. Okay, that's just what I'll say about what happened. Okay, it's all well and good. It's all for show. Austin Creed brought in some peppers and was like, I put these peppers down, these habanero peppers. Loser eats the peppers. So Xavier Woods and Kenny Omega do their first to 5. And then Kenny Omega does that heel turn from the knife to the pipe. He's like, I've been practicing the pipe all day. Haha. Gotcha. And then uses the pipe, which I think most people have like already agreed just by looking at it and people getting their hands on it at E3. Like, yeah, the pipe is probably the way to go. Pipe is probably leads to a lot more options with Cody in terms of V-Trigger selection. This is V-Trigger 2. And Kenny wins, and it's a whole thing, and I expect this beef to continue and be extended all the way to CEO, and I look forward to all the fun, dumb beef, what the wrestling world of entertainment has for the FGC. So this is all very exciting and good, but also, like, from a fighting game spectator's point of view, like, there's a lot of just, like, buttons that hit from up close where you're like, you should be looking to cancel that, or like, why do you press the sweep there? That's strange. Which again, all of it may or may, like, part of that may be that the matches themselves were the matches themselves rigged? Yeah, whatever, man. It's wrestling, and the lines are so blurred I can't even tell you. Oh my god. But anyway, so let's get off of that. Let's get off of fake fights and get to real fights. Get to someone who is in it. So, two people who know about it. And I will lead your attention to the Gauntlet podcast. This is a podcast from Chris T and Brent is cool. But what they've been doing, or I should say what Chris T has been doing with Beast, because he's like sponsored. He's sponsored by Beast or Psy Games. I can't fucking remember how that works out. I think it's Beast. Regardless, it's basically the same shit. And what they've been doing is going around and interviewing strong players and community members and getting some really good player-to-player conversations. And this one is with Chris T and Luffy. Speaking of, like, Luffy's Evo run in 2014, or like how Luffy has adapted going from Rose to Armika, which is like, if you don't know how Rose played in Street Fighter 4 and how Mika plays in Street Fighter 5, those are like diametrically opposed mindsets when it comes to how you play fighting, like would approach a fighting game. So they get into that. They get into how to stay mentally stable, how to play from the losers bracket and swing up, how to keep it cool, when to like perform a reversal. Like that seems to be, and this is kind of going along with the last interview that Chris T did with Daigo, seems to be something on Chris T's heart, where performing a reversal when you're in the losers bracket seems to be like that huge risk of never wanting to do it because you'll just die. Luffy just speaks from the heart. He's like, well, sometimes you just gotta feel it. You gotta do it. You gotta learn how to. You gotta roll with the flow. He just seems like a chill dude. It's a very good interview. These are two very high level players talking about very high level play, and definitely worth the watch. As someone who is, if you're even trying to get to that level, or if you're even want to think about what players at that level might be thinking about. And speaking of which, that's a good transition into this week's FGC's FGC History. Do we call it FGC Spotlight of the Week? Is that what we typically call this? I forget what my segments are called. It's been so long since I've done typical segments. FGC History is the next bit. So of course I have to go to Luffy and Bonchan, because why not? That transition was so easy, and it's a good set. This was a set 2014 Evolution Grand Finals. Luffy coming from losers, Bonchan and winners. Sagat versus Rose, and it's a solid match to see how Bonchan. I mean, spoiler alert, because we just fucking talked about it. But Bonchan loses. He was in winners, loses the reset, and then loses the tournament. But interesting to see how he plays this set. And I would actually, and like how it changes over time, because you see a lot of fireballs from a little bit further out than they probably ought to be in this particular matchup, because Rose pretty much demolishes everyone in the fireball war in Street Fighter 4 because of her ability to reflect and absorb, and almost the entire match Luffy has super and gets away with it, or like has good use of meter in this entire set. Bonchan, like, very solid play. Like, it's one of those things where there's a couple things that like someone might recommend him do in the neutral, where he could, like, I can envision like something where like he had ran a set with a very highly skilled Rose player like all night the night previously, and known this matchup a little bit better and won it. That's like an alternate history that I could see here, and you can actually see the change. This is a twofer, folks. In their follow-up run back, it's a money match. Thanks to Ryan Hart, we have shaky. How you see most, or at least have been got used to seeing video of like this throughout the Street Fighter 4 era, is people with their phones hanging behind stations, holding them up with that shaky cam, zooming in, digital zoom, all that digital zoom. Brought to you by Ryan Hart, so good. And this is like the first time they meet after that Evo match. Do this salty run back in a it's first to 5, and it is interesting to see how they both play it. It doesn't seem like Luffy really changes his game all that much, but you can definitely see a change in how Bonchan plays the matchup. A lot more stand medium kick. Fireball spacing is a little bit closer, but like just little changes like that, where if he had known those things going into Evo, would things have been different? I don't know, maybe. But definitely, these are both definitely worth a watch if you want to see how players might think about and lab a match in the meantime. And high stakes in both times. But not like super high stakes in the money match, but you know, when you throw money down, there's high stakes there. And you kind of like, you can see both players trying to defend the history of what had happened. Bonchan trying to get that salty run back. It's all good. Definitely worth a watch. And that'll do it for a show. I will leave with one more thing, which is asking you, the listeners, how do you want the format of this show to be going forward? Because recently they've gotten a lot of really positive feedback on the guest episodes, to which I ask you all, should I try and get more guest episodes, or should I try and get more news episodes like this one? Granted, there wasn't much Street Fighter news this week because they didn't talk about much Street Fighter stuff at E3, and that's where most of the people are anyway, and it's all good. Don't worry about it. Resident Evil 2 looks very good game. Regardless, I ask you, do you want more the guests, just talking back and forth about what might or might not be going on in the world of Street Fighter. Go vote. I have a poll up, which will end sometime tomorrow. So go vote in that poll if you are a listener and have any opinion on the direction of this show. Or I should say, and you should go vote in the player sponsorship, which is also happening currently and will end on Friday. So at the end of the day on Friday, June 15th. Look forward to that. Get your votes in now while you still can. There's limited time here. So go vote on how you feel this podcast should be. Go vote in player sponsorship. Go leave a review for this podcast on however you choose to listen to it. But that's the show. You can find me at Super Joe Monday on Twitter, or you can find me at Joe_Monday on the subreddit, or you could just talk to our Street Fighter through at Reddit SF on Twitter. It's the official account. Either way, we'll get in touch. Any comments you can leave in there will be YouTube for this one as well. I just keep that archive just for posterity or whatever, because some people like watching podcasts on YouTube, but most people just listen to the podcast. But if you want to leave notes or have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can drop them in the post for this on the subreddit, or you can email redditfighting@gmail.com. If you have any questions, just tag your subject with questions in the header, and I'll get around to them when I can or on the next episode, whatever is pertinent. But that'll do it, folks. Until next time, take care, and we'll see you next week. Fucking wind chime.